Salam and welcome back to SomaliDispatch.com's YouTube channel. My name is Abdikadir Guled. This week on Dispatches, we're discussing President Farmajo's achievements in the past 5 years, election progress in Somalia, new U.S. policy towards Somalia, and the Somaliland delegation that visited Taiwan. To unpack these items, we're joined by Hassan Yusuf Waal, an activist, a freelance writer, and an independent filmmaker. Fatheya Gelleh Msc, International Conflict and Resolution Human Rights Advocate, a GBV. Fatheya is also a community liaison officer for nonprofit organizations in the UK. Welcome, Fatheya Gelleh and Hassan Yusuf Waal for joining me this afternoon and for this week's Dispatches program. Let me start with Hassan. If you can give us your assessment on President Farmajo recently stepped into his 5th year, just actually finished his 5th year and started his 6th year. If you can give us the highlights of his tenure for that past 5 years and what you think the achievements or perhaps even the shortcomings were.
Thank you, Abdikadir, for having me. It's a great pleasure to appear on your program. Many Somalis are not hopeful as they were 5 years ago. In 2017, February, President Farmajo was great popular, but in 2022, the president is a polarizing president. And this is basically due to the fact that he promised a lot in terms of reforming a lot and bringing peace to the country. But what's happening at the moment, if we look into the highs and the lows of the president, there are 3 moments that define, the negative side of the president's, presidency, which is the extradition of Daga, the removal of Prime Minister Kaire, and also the failure to hold one person, one vote election. So those are the 3 moments that will define the negative side of the President Farmajo's term. However, on the other side, I think the president, has got some achievements. For example, the security sector reforms, introducing the national security architecture, which is a very successful initiative. Also, financial reforms, which, as a result, allowed to have a continual payroll for the citizens, for the civil servants, and also I would say on the foreign policy, he did really well, which is mainly standing tall against what I call external. The aggression of external forces, and also he introduced a few bills, but overall, the president, was not as strong as he could have been on many issues.
Right. Fatheya, same question. A look back on President Farmajo's legal term and then the 1-year extension. What evaluations could you give and how do you see his legacy at this point?
Thank you very much, Abdikadir. It's lovely to see you again. It's a great question. 5 years ago, President Farmajo came, and he came at a time when Somalia needed, it needed a fresh start. A president actually was supposed to propel Somalia to even better system of governance. And ethical leadership is really important subject for me personally, and looking upon the achievements of Farmajo so far. I can say that you have this experience now that the Somali society or the public is confused. They are confused. They're either for or against him, and there's an issue of corruption that has not been addressed. So yes, I agree with Hassan about the financial reform. The debt relief was very instrumental in making Somalia a contender in the Horn of Africa. But what we also have is, in terms of foreign policy, for example, we have tripartite. So we are in an agreement with Ethiopia and Eritrea. But the Horn of Africa is not just Somalia, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. So there has been a case of not just a political domestic impasse, where there is no agreement on how to expedite the election process, but there has also been negative impact in terms of foreign policy, with the relationship with Kenya, with the relationship with other parts of within even the Somali federal government states. So the federal member states have been either for Farmajo or perhaps against Farmajo in some sense. And what you see is a rivalry for power. So we know for a fact that President Farmajo would like to be re-elected. But on what basis? We do not have one person, one vote. This election is as the Foreign Relations Committee described it, is not what was what was meant to be for Somali people, who didn't have who have not had the choice to decide this. So, and on the other hand, what we also have is endemic corruption. Somalia is not doing well in terms of anti-corruption. We do not know the data to support what mechanisms or procedural law have been legislative law have been sort of formulated to kind of showcase what Farmajo has achieved in the last 5 years. So we are in a very situation where the government promises has not come to fruition. And that does impact on Farmajo's legacy, whether he is re-elected by default, during this electoral, at the moment we have the deadline is the 25th of February. And there's a reason behind that, because it's been going on for such a long time, over a year now. So right. We do need a president. And the situation in terms of security is very, very dire. Al-Shabaab is not letting up. So that's my point of view really on that.
Right. If I may stay with you, Fatheya, having said all of that, the two of you beautifully highlighted some of the contentious, be they achievements or shortcomings. What does that mean for Somalia's presidency moving forward, specifically addressing the extension and the unknown end of a term? What does that mean for the presidency in Somalia?
Well, the extension, we know that the international community does not support an extension or parallel election. That has been debated and it has been put to rest. And the September Agreement, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the Afisioni meeting, these have had serious impact on people's trust and confidence in a government, in a central government versus federal member states government. On top of that, what you have is the insecurity. People can't make plans, uncertainty. COVID had an impact. COVID contracted the economy in some level. And we also have a drought issue. So instead of this political hysteria, this political inability of the leadership, not just the opposition, but also, President Farmajo, for them to actually find a solution, we are stuck. And now we are against the clock to make sure that we abide by the agreement, 25th of February. Right.
Appreciate that. Hassan Yusuf Waal, if you could chime in on the extension of the presidency, President Farmajo, the unknown, results of the how long the results of the parliament will be known or will be concluded. What does that in the future mean for Somali presidency?
I think the extension has been a recipe for disaster. instability and uncertainty. This has created, problems for many Somalis. And whoever is the next president will have a huge task of fixing this deeply divided country. So, what we hoped, in February, in 2017, was at least to change the status quo, to change these so-called, extensions. And what we have seen is a diversion of policies and strategies to fix the system. The focus was on extension, and the as you might remember, the talk of the extension was right in the middle of the second year of the president's term. People was talking about the intention of the president and his team to extend, another 2 years. So this has actually was a political paralysis, if I would say, and this will have an impact in the future.
Right. If I stay with you, Hassan, as we all know, and Fatheya alluded to it, the U.S. government has a new policy regarding furthering democracy in Somalia and imposing or threatening to impose visa bans on leaders found to be obstacles to Somali democracy. Your reaction to that policy?
I think the tough love message from the U.S. I'm not sure whether it will have a successful effect, given the conduct of the Somali politicians and the total impunity they have. We've got less than 2 weeks, to complete the parliamentary, election. I wouldn't say election, it's selection basically, because there is no a real democratic process in what's going on in Somalia, and I'm not sure what's the achievement of these sanctions. Are they to complete the election, in which I don't think it will be on time, or is it just to avoid and stop the corruption, the endemic corruption, like my colleague said. For somehow, there's only 46% of the parliamentary seats have so far been elected. There's almost 50% left to be elected. So I don't know what impact these sanctions will have on the ground, but it's necessary. At least it is helpful move, to be honest, to tell the Somali leaders, okay, if you don't do this, this is what is going to happen. But as far as I'm concerned, I think we need more than that. We need the Somali people to come together, and it's really a shame to see those other countries dictating and telling us what to do. And the solution would be not external people. The solution is within. It's us. It's down to us to fix the problem. And
right.
Unfortunately, this has not been done so far. And this is the worry, and that we would have whoever is coming next time, the next election, basically, right. Whoever is the next president. This is a huge task that, like I said, that they need to solve such kind of problem.
Right. Thank you, Hassan. Fatheya, your reaction to the new U.S. policy that you briefly touched on, and perhaps the aspect of their concern, of the U.S. concern, which is the completion and not the proper agreed upon elections. If you can give us your reaction to that, would be great.
Well, I mean, when I've read this, and I actually thought Secretary Blinken was quite correct in these type of measures that he has taken upon himself to impose on Somali politicians who are reluctant to expedite the process. So be that as it may, it's a selection manipulation. So we know that the people have not chosen these MPs that are putting their names, or these candidates that are putting their names for the lower house positions. We, just as Hassan touched up on the fact that corruption is an issue, Somalia is not a country that it's potentially wealthy, but the people are not wealthy. So that the free and fair election means a lot. And that hasn't happened. So this Secretary Blinken statement is restricting visas on people who are impeding the process, who are not abiding by the agreement. It's supposed to be punitive measures. But in fact, it's not as harsh as it might seem. It's for people who have perhaps dual nationalities, who are involved in Somali politics on one hand, but also have the opportunity to leave the country if matters don't, come to their liking. So, and in the other respect is, I mean, the Guled and the Herchebel elections are happening. I think there are more. On the 14th tomorrow. There will be more. We will know more. In terms of the candidates are not chosen on a merit or their professional capacity as fantastic policymakers who know their jobs in state affairs. It is chosen on a point of qabil, sometimes a clanship, and that's not good for democracy. That's not good for transparency. And what Ilhan, for instance, Congress Ilhan's letter to the Secretary Blinken and Yellen specified was, how is this supposed to be utilized? What is supposed to be the impact? Can they elaborate on the arms restrictions towards Somalia? What will happen? But that cannot be even discussed, because the ATMIS, which is the African Union Transition Mission, has not handed power over to the SSF, which is the Somali Security Forces, not until December 2023. So what you need to understand is, in terms of President Farmajo, he should have been hitting the ground running. He should have had a constitutional court appointed. He should have had anti-corruption agency committee appointed. He should have had given more powers to the Attorney General to deal with, for instance, Ikran's case, to show transparency, to show good governance, to show ethical leadership. He should have thought about perhaps expanding his sphere of influence with Somaliland, for instance, who are more or less vying for independence and probably will get independence given the recent US interest in Somaliland. And he should have actually looked upon the Horn of Africa geopolitically and made sure that the relationship that has withered away with Kenya over the maritime case can also be, as a United Nations security member, can be reinstated. There are a lot of Somalis that live in Kenya that have vested interest in Somalia. So there are a lot of issues here. So in that respect, the accomplishment of Farmajo are relative. They, it has to come to an end, by electing a president at the end of this month. The deadline is not going to change. And if it is extended, there might be more issues to be dealt with.
Right. If we could stay with you a bit and perhaps move into the next topic, which is the Somaliland ministerial delegation that visited Taipei this week and held a press conference there. If we can get your reaction to that move by Somaliland, which many are calling daring, given both Somalia and China's opposition to that relationship.
The situation with Taiwan and Somaliland relationship is a welcoming position to be in. They are both unrecognized, but they have achieved more than what was expected of them over the years. It's particularly Taiwan has one of the best technological advancement in terms of chip making. So it's a country that is not only recognized by 15 countries around the world, but the issue of recognition is, in terms of Somaliland and Taiwan, is a complex issue, because it involves speaking to your own counterpart, so to speak. So Somalia would be for Somaliland, and the African Union, the people that they need to actually sit together with and negotiate some sort of agreement, and that hasn't happened. The concept of reconciliation is definitely an issue, and the Taiwanese relationship is upsetting perhaps for China, but Somaliland is independent. It can make relationships with whomever it wishes.
Many Fatheya have been highlighting some of the pitfalls, as well as some of the accomplishment that you just mentioned, upsetting a superpower like China with the veto at the UN. What does that mean for Somaliland in terms of taking on China at this point?
There are five P5, the P5 countries, Russia, China, UK, the US, and France, with obviously Germany as well. In terms of recognition has been discussed, and it has been put forward recently. There has been a debate in the British Parliament about recognizing Somaliland, and that's because it's undeniable the achievement that has happened in Somaliland over the last 3 decades are fantastic. I mean, for a country that has been destroyed, in the 1990s, to rise from the ashes of the civil war and accomplish what it did is commendable. And its security forces are strong. Its stability, its robust action against ISIS and Al-Shabaab is well known. The apparatus is commendable. So, in that respect. The question is not whether it deserves to be recognized. The question is, why has it not been recognized? Right. Because it has achieved so much. But obviously, this would be also another issue with this idea of federal government of Somalia, this notion of 4.5 system. And Hassan touched up on that. One person, one vote. We don't even have one person, one vote in Somalia, but we do have one person, one vote in Somaliland. So right. Can you see the sort of the dichotomy of the situation?
We do. Thank you for highlighting some of the achievements of Somaliland, but as it relates to this new relationship with Taiwan and how China fused it on what perhaps some of the pitfalls could be, Hassan, your reaction for this week's ministerial visit to Taiwan, and what jumps at you when you talk about that?
Yeah, like Fatheya said, it's a complex issue, and it upsets basically China, both China and Somalia. Yeah. But these self-declared countries, like my colleague said, they achieved a lot. Somaliland have done well, but it is somehow. It is really, if you look at from one perspective, so the China's perspective, it sees as a provocative measure. And as you know, China has got a military base in Djibouti. They've got a lot of interest in that Indian Ocean. The Belt Initiative, which China thinks Berbera is more important. And also, on the other hand, Somalia sees as, Somaliland is part of Somalia. So this will, geopolitically, it will create tensions. But, so far, this is something that has been developed in 2020 when both countries, they set up representatives, and Taiwan is now looking forward, helping Somaliland. But the issue will be how Somalia and China will react to the recent developments. And I hope that, it should not escalate and create more tensions between what's going on, the discussions between Somalia and Somaliland, that it will not affect negatively. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. I can't thank the both of you enough for joining me today and giving us your analysis on these items. Fatheya Gelleh, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for your time today. Hassan Yusuf Waal, likewise, and hopefully we will join each other in the next few weeks to discuss some more of these issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdikadir.